you. So let me help you understand something very quickly right from the top. And that is what I don't do. Because I was having a nice conversation with these ladies back there. I always go to the people in the back because they think they can stay away from the speaker in the front. They really do. It always happens that way. It's just like when I used to teach a class, first day of class, everybody would come in and sit in the back row. And then what I would do is I would begin the lecture from the back and completely freak them out. But I'm not going to do that now, but I did have the opportunity to talk a little bit about what they thought tonight was about. They looked up on the board behind me, and they saw that I'm going to talk about leading change, it's not what you think. And they made the very normal and proper assumption that this was going to be a motivational speech, and that I am a motivational speaker. And that's where I begin my first story. Because next Thursday, and please, I am not looking for applause at this point, is my 15th wedding anniversary. I knew I'd get, see, if I waited long enough, I'd get, and I want to tell my wife, Lisa, that I got applause. My kids will go crazy for that. But that's not the point of the story. It's what happened 16 years ago about motivational speaking. Because 16 years ago, my father-in-law, who is now a retired car wash owner, came up to me, sat me down very seriously and said, you know, let's be honest, you're going to marry my daughter, and I want to know how you're going to pay for my grandkids. Well, we'd only gone out twice by that point. But with that in mind, I decided to take him up on the notion, and he said, how the heck are you going to pay for a life as one of them motivational speakers? And he says, are you like the guy on Saturday Night Live who lived in the van down by the river? You'll remember, some of you remember the Chris Farley character, and that's what he really thought I did. And when you think about a motivational speaker, in all due respect, that's not what we're going to do tonight. Because I know something that those motivational speakers won't exactly tell you, is that I can't motivate you to do anything. Nobody can motivate anyone to do anything. And what happens is, especially these days, we get into these conversations with the people that we work with in these absolutely crazy working times. We get into these conversations about motivation and about change, and we actually begin to think that because we're the boss, and because we have teams and people that work for us, and because we own small or big companies, that somehow we are imbued with this power that we are able to somehow magically affect the minds of the people who work for us or below us. And therefore, when we see things not going how we want it to get, a conversation like the one that took place between Sarah and I a few months ago takes place, where Sarah told me about your organization very glowingly. She said you were looking for a speaker to help you make sense of a leadership challenge. And the leadership challenge is how inundated you were last year with all sorts of information of economic forecasts of doom and gloom and problems and challenges, especially within the manufacturing industry. And what were you going to do about it? Because darn it, no matter what you tried, all too often, it didn't seem like other people were getting it. And I get client after client after client that asks me fundamentally the same question. And it goes something like this. Drew, if you can come into our company and you can help us try to figure out something to do in how we communicate so that people will just get it, so that people will just change. Can you help us make people change? And I lose probably half of the audience that asks me that question because I tell them that I can't help them. Because, back to my point that I told my father-in-law that he looked at me rather confused about, was that you can't make anybody do anything. that the job of a leader in an organization, whether you have a small team or you have a big company or you work in your church or your temple or wherever you work, that your job is simply to create an environment where the right kinds of conversations can take place. And we'll talk tonight about what is the right kind of conversation that brings about your best shot for change. Because frankly, I think most people don't do it. And that's where it gets pretty interesting with groups. I think people massively misunderstand what it takes to have the right conversation in an organization in a time of change. Why? Because people are scared. Because people are scared for their jobs, they're scared about their government, they're scared about all sorts of things, and what do they get when they go to work? They more than often get an organization that tells them they should be grateful for their jobs and to shut up and get back to work. And that is not even close to that kind of environment that I'm talking about the need for you to create. But you really can't blame the boss, because the boss knows, right? The boss has a sense of what to do. And they just don't get it as to why others don't.